like to see. Is everything working fine? I think everything's working fine. That's what I like to see. That's not always the case. You know, sometimes there's problems. Alright, sweet. Watch now. And then I'm going to... I found out something new that I need to,
Okay.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa. Man's saying the bannable offense.
Oh. Well, it's not like... If it's true, it's not. I'm using it in the term of truth.
That's fair. That's fair. That is very fair.
It's not like I'm insulting him. I was literally just stating.
That is very fair. He could just be very happy. You know?
That's what it means.
He could just be really happy. What are you talking about, man?
God.
What's the
Huh?
My man is just saying like he's stumped, like he has no
Someone in
idea
the
what's
chat?
going on. Yeah.
Jesse has been at the gym for like an hour.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, I actually kind of forgot that it was there until I started streaming. It used to be across, and then I went to the gym, and I think it sweat off, and I forgot it was there. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I don't think this is working. I mean, the stream's working, but I don't think the mod view is working. I'm gonna be completely honest. The mod view definitely does not seem to be working, like, in the slightest. Maybe I just don't know how to use it. Oh, there's actually quite a few. Actually, you know what? I actually don't know what denominations recognize it and which ones don't. Let me actually look that up.
I'm non-denominational. I get to pick and choose. Right?
I mean, on some things.
On everything.
On some things.
On everything, Logan.
Oh, wait. What denominations do Ash...
Yes.
Which denominations do Ash Wednesday? Well, Ash Wednesday is traditionally observed by Western Christians. It is observed by Catholics in the Roman Rite, Anglicans, Lutherans, Methodists, Moravians, Nazarenes, Independent Catholics, as well as many from the Reformed faith, inclusive of the Congregationalist, Continental Reformed, and Presbyterian traditions, and United Protestants. Among these include several Baptist traditions.
Baptists do it.
Well, the Baptists back home I don't think do, but...
Yeah.
No. Actually, I don't even think the Catholics started it, to be fair. I actually don't know who started it, but it might have been the Catholics? I actually don't know who started it. I mean, usually people identify it with the Catholics because of how, like, typically whenever people think of Lent, they think of the Catholics, but...
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Just kicked out. No, I did not, but that doesn't surprise me. So how's it going today, everybody? Macho Man, how's it going today? Zev, how's it going? Good to see you guys.
Wait. Look, what do you believe a godly vision is? Could it be like, say like could I have one like right now? Like, and like, you don't have to be asleep to have one.
No.
So it could just like happen at any moment.
I mean...
Or would that
believe
just be
so.
daydreaming? Like, how do you classify it?
I don't know. I mean, I think people have visions. I mean, the Bible talks about people having visions while they were awake, and there was
But
actually...
is that you think that's the same as daydreaming?
I wouldn't say
Or do you
so.
think there's a difference?
I think if you're getting a dream from God, you would probably be able to know it's a dream from God, unless if you're not Christian, right? Like, I think if you got like a vision from God, you would know. I feel like, I mean, I haven't, but I feel like you would.
See, I was at that revival over the weekend, and someone like came up and was like, "I just had a vision from God that we were all in front of His, like the crown judgment or whatever, And I was like, "Yeah, but how do you know what that looks like exactly? Like, how did you specify it to the T?" And it just, I didn't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we had
And I'm just like a skeptical person as is, so like it's not that I want to believe everyone on what they say, but I don't know if it's off of feeling more than faith.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to like just in general, right? Like, it's hard to just say, oh yeah, like this person definitely had a revelation from God. I mean, it's pretty hard. Like, I mean, like that was. So this is something that I don't feel like a lot of people actually realize about the Old Testament. All of those prophets that, you know, like the major and the minor prophets, like Jeremiah writes about this even. That's like a big point of his narrative, is essentially that people don't believe the prophet when they come. The prophets are only recognized as truly prophets after their prophecies come true. Like, all those prophets in the Old Testament, nobody believed them. They were outcasts. Everybody hated them. Like, the kings, the leadership, the people, everyone. It was only after their prophecies came true that they were like, wait, let's go back to that guy. Right? So it's like, even, like, it's the same problem we have today, right? People say they have visions. People say they have a word from God. And it's like, well, I'd like to believe you.
Yeah.
It's run by a pastor. Both the man and wife had the label pastor, so yeah. Yeah, no, Southern Baptists would definitely do that.
No keys, that'd be tripping.
I actually learned something really interesting. Might have to fly it by you and Evan at some point. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the flood narrative, so we don't have to talk about it tonight, but it was really interesting. Something I'd never heard before, so we'll see.
Where is Kevin Bo 11 Schmoon Devin? I actually have a question to ask Terry.
Terry?
Yeah.
Dude, I haven't talked to you
GTA.
in a long. Oh, about GTA. Okay.
Because, like, actually, you probably wouldn't know. Actually, it's not. I don't know. I'm gonna ask you. You probably won't know, but. So I like migrated. This is the first time playing GTA on this Xbox. It's a new one, and I got the edition. That was the edition for this console, and it made me migrate my account over.
Oh.
Do you think, theoretically, if I go on the older version of the game, everything will transfer to the newer one?
Hopefully.
I'd assume so.
Yeah, I would
feel like
hope
that's how
so.
it should be.
Ideally, that would be how it works.
Yeah, it just wasn't hundo percento positivo.
What a guy. I haven't heard from him in a really long time. Well, then again, he said we're not friends anymore, so doesn't surprise me. I haven't heard from him in a long time.
Very.
Hey, I mean, he pulled the question. He said it's either God or me, and I was like,
Wait, Terry said that to you?
well, he didn't say it in that exact wording, but I mean, I think I told you about this. If I didn't tell you, I at least told Evan about it. We were having a chat or whatever. I don't remember how it started, but somehow in the conversation I brought up that God is the most important thing to me. And he said, "What?" Like, that's all he said. He didn't say anything else. And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" And he's like, "Did you really just say that?" I was like, "Yeah, I did." And he said, "I can't be friends with somebody who puts God as the number one thing in their life," and he blocked me. I was like, no chance
What?
that just happened. I was like, dude, you do realize that like everyone you talk to from PA like says the same thing, right? Like I wanted to say that, but I couldn't.
Yeah, they're in on another level.
Zev, that's true, you know? I mean, as he should. I pray all the time my loves God more. No, exactly. Like, that's, so whenever, like, I mean, I can't say this because I'm not a licensed marriage counselor, but I had to take marriage counseling for leadership. That was one of the things I was supposed to tell couples before marrying them was that, well, essentially I sit them down and I ask them what's the most important thing in their life. And most couples don't think about it, they just say each other. And I say wrong, you're supposed to say wrong. You can't let that be the case, but God first and your relationship will thrive if you do so.
Right.
And usually couples take that to heart pretty quickly. Usually couples kind of hear that and they're like, oh, yeah, actually that's a good point. And then they'll like, because you tell that to couples before you marry them, right? Like before you're marrying them, you have to go through with them and you talk with them about stuff. And that's like one of the things you bring up, right? You essentially just say what I just said, right? And usually like upon their marriage, then they then take that to heart, right? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe we should actually like, you know, as we go into our marriage, as we say our vows and as we move on to move into our place, let's take that more seriously. And you know,
Fair.
oh hey Kay, how's it going? Long time no see. Modern Warfare tonight?
You joined Discord.
No, so Zev, so you won't know this pastor. He's a pastor from back home. Evan and Bert, you'll know him. Mr. Richardson. Richardson's a very common name. I'm not scared about you guys looking him up.
Well, he has his own like thing, anyways. Like he has a bunch of social media, so I don't think it matters.
That's fair, yeah. But he told my class a really cool story. So he was driving his son to something, I don't know. It was just him and his son in the car, and his son was like 4 or 5 years old maybe. And his son asked him on the car ride, like this is tough. His son asked him, "Who do you love more, Daddy? Me or God?" And of course that's like a 4 or 5 year old kid asking that, right? Like how in the world do you answer that? And I think he handled it really well. His response was essentially, I love God more because without God I wouldn't have you. And I think that's a really good way of answering that, honestly. And you can say the same thing about like your wife, right? Like I love God more because he gave me you, right? Or husband, you know, in some cases.
Evan?
But yeah, Cole, how's it going, man? What's your plan for the night? Well, I gotta hear all you guys' plans, actually. Cole, I gotta hear your plan. I gotta hear Kay's plan. Maybe Modern Warfare. Usually whenever you join, I feel like it's Modern Warfare, so. Zev, I know you will be doing a great job of moderating and getting some sick Twitch clips to upload later.
Yo, what's up, boys?
Oh, hey, dude, how's it going?
Pretty good. My Discord on my Xbox won't work for some reason, so I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
Yep.
GTA cruising.
Yo, I actually would enjoy that.
No, Zev, I didn't ask what your plan was because I clarified what your plan actually was going to be. And that plan is that you're going to be moderating and making cool, epic clips so that we can upload the YouTube later.
Dude, and we started we started a cool new thing in cruising where we just pick a random car and then we all line them up and then we each pick a number and then we swap cars.
That's actually kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a good idea.
That way it's more like fair in a sense, like random.
Yeah, true.
Luke always be getting lapped.
Hey, you agreed to this job, you know? As the, you know, under your job title, that's what that's what it says. It says just sit here, make Twitch clips, and boot bad people. That's all it says,
Rich moves.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Hey, well, Kay, if you're Kay, we're gonna be talking for a little while here about some stuff, but Kay, if you're still around later on after we're done with it, maybe we could play some Modern Warfare. I mean, me and Dietrich are both here, so we could both play some Modern Warfare later on if you're still here. I'll just whenever I guess we're done talking, I'll ask if you're still here, and then if you're still here, yeah, absolutely.
Gosh.
Or I could just message, or if
Wait,
you do
bro,
leave, I could
are
message
you.
you.
Live streaming right now?
Yeah, that means you can't
Devin, why are you screaming?
pull a Luke.
Oh boy.
Relax.
Alright, I'm gonna mute myself.
Hey, so guess what, Evan?
Yo, what's up?
As of last night, Luke is giving $20 to the homeless.
Woo! Let's go, Luke. New record.
I know, he's at the top of the leaderboard. Probably get off around 9. Oh, hey, no sweat though, Kay. No sweat. If you gotta get off at 9, that's perfectly fine. We'll find another night to play.
You get everyone more involved in GTA.
It's always fun getting carried in search by you, so, okay, also, when are we gonna do the you and Bert 1v1 on Rust?
I actually don't want to embarrass someone that bad, so...
Dude, I'd be more worried about Kay embarrassing you.
Nah, I don't want to embarrass someone. It's not in my nature.
Zev, I asked you to play zombies whenever you join in. I asked you to join the Clash clan. I asked you to play Minecraft. I asked
You
all
waited
three.
too long.
Dude, Kay
I'm not.
Kay says that you just don't want the smoke.
Huh?
Kay says you just don't want the smoke.
No, I'd feel like really, really bad.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. After having played with Kay, I get very similar skill vibes as you.
Yeah, but dude,
Like, I genuinely
Kay-
feel like you guys would be pretty close in skill.
and considering I haven't played like COD since MW2 a few months ago.
Well, that would make it even more fair.
9%
That'd still be better.
Bert's power.
You didn't offer. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I did say that it would be Minecraft once we had a public server, so that is fair. I didn't offer Minecraft. I did offer Minecraft in the future, though. I offered Minecraft for the future whenever we get a public server. I offered Clash Royale Clan. I offered to play zombies, and I do think I offered for you to play Modern Warfare with us too. I think. If I didn't, I definitely offered it to other people. Plus Zev, literally whenever I go live on the streams, if we're playing with people, I put in the title playing with viewers.
What was that?
I put in the title playing with viewers.
Oh my gosh, dude! Literally,
But
the
you can't say I didn't offer.
GTA AI are the worst.
Zev, you can't say I didn't offer.
Wait, can I do like the XS version with you guys, or is that not possible?
No, but that's what I'm playing on right now.
Oh, okay.
I wish
Could
we had
we
the
do
same-
that?
Oh, you ended up buying Black
Me
Ops
and
2.
you can,
Because my
but they won't be able to.
No,
Logan,
Zev,
you don't have the
no.
XS version.
Zev,
Well, he's not
technically
playing it on
you
stream.
said we weren't friends.
Oh, he's not playing GTA.
Technically you said that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Evan, we're actually trying out something different tonight.
Oh, what are we doing?
Tonight we're trying it out. I just want to see how it goes. We're doing the just chatting category, and it's just
Hmm.
strictly looking at
Like no game.
Yeah, no game, just chat.
No, that's
and, yeah.
chat and talk and
Yeah.
Discord boys.
So we're
No,
just gonna
that
try it
sounds
out.
like a good idea, actually. Yeah, no, that sounds hype.
You're supposed to do. Well, I mean, you're the moderator, and I trust your judgment. And you said, that was your call, and I said, I trust your judgment. I guess if that's what you want, then it's got to be the best option,
Be right back. Memento, por favor.
I feel like Cole really wants us to get into the Bible study, so we might have to start.
Dude, I
Logan,
tried
I'm just letting you know now. At some point, I'm gonna be heading out.
Okay.
I'll be back. I'm working on thermo, and I did not go to class today. and this one thing on the homework's not making sense, so I'm guessing it was something I missed in class.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, no sweat. Glad you're here at all. You know? Not done with dinner? Oh, well, you can just listen to this while you're cooking, you know? That sounds like a good compromise.
Clevin, but Clevin, what is your deal?
Alright. I'm just gonna pull it up and I'm just gonna read it. And then you guys can get your questions and stuff while I'm reading, you know? We'll be good. I almost swapped over to the wrong thing.
I
Alright.
do not have it right now.
So this is going to be a little bit of reading. I'm not going to lie. It might take a couple minutes because it's 4 chapters. I can't clip while I'm cooking and you'll cancel me. Oh, dude, you know I'll cancel you. I'll find something terrible deep down that I can cancel you for. Alright, so.
Why aren't you in my game, Evan?
Are we all good? We think?
No.
We're not good?
No, I'm kidding. You were on your phone.
Alright. Well, while he's figuring it out, I'll just read it, because it's going to take a couple minutes anyways. So starting with Genesis 6. Alright. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. When the sons of God went into the daughters of humans who bore children to them, these were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of humans was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he made humans on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out from the earth the humans that I have created, people together with animals and creeping things and the birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. These are the descendants of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw that the earth was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its ways upon the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. Now I am going to destroy them along with the earth. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are able to make it. The length of the ark 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark, and finish it to a cubit above, and put the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower... Oh gosh, why did I lose my spot? Make it with lower, second, and third decks. For my part, I am going to bring a flood of waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh, which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark to keep alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, and the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind, 2 of every kind shall come in to you, to keep them alive. Also take with you every kind of food that is eaten, and store it up, and it shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. Chapter 7. Thus the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and its mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and its mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the air also, male and female, to keep their kind alive on the face of the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground. And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters came on the earth, and Noah with his sons and his wife of his sons' wives went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 and 2, male and female, went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days the waters of the flood came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah with his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons entered the ark. They, and every wild animal of every kind, and all domestic animals of every kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every bird of every kind. They went into the ark with Noah, 2 and 2 of all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. And those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. The flood continued 40 days on the earth, and the waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters swelled and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. The waters swelled so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters swelled above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all flesh that moved on the earth, birds, domestic animals, wild animals, and all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all human beings, everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life, died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, human beings and animals and creeping things and birds of the air, they were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark, and the waters swelled on the earth for 150 days. Chapter 8. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and all the domestic animals that were with him in the ark. And God made a wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the windows of the heavens were closed, the rain from the earth was restrained, and the waters gradually receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days the waters had abated, and in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains appeared. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he sent out a raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground, but the dove found no place to set its foot, and it returned to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took it and brought it into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark, and the dove came back to him in the evening, and there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Then he waited another 7 days and sent out the dove, and it did not return to him any more. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked and saw that the face of the ground was drying. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, "Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, and every animal, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing odor, the Lord said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground because of humans, for the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth, nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I have done. As the earth endures seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." Chapter 9. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you shall rest on every animal of the earth and on every bird of the air, on everything that creeps on the ground, on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they shall be delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you, and just as I gave you the green plants I give you everything. Only you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. For your own lifeblood I will surely require a reckoning. From every animal I will require it, and from human beings each one for the blood of another. I will require a reckoning for human life. Whoever sheds the blood of a human, by a human shall that person's blood be shed, for in his image God made humans. And you, be fruitful and multiply, abound on the earth, and have dominion over it." Then God said to Noah and his sons with him, "As for me, I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the domestic animals, and every animal of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth." God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you, for all future generations. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth." The sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was peopled. Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine and became drunk, and he lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed by the Lord may my God be Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. May God make space for Japheth, and let him live in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Dude, that was a lot of reading.
Yeah, the flood story is long.
It's longer than like, I feel like the first time I went over the flood story again, like as like a fully functioning human being who could read it for myself, I was always very shocked by like, oh wow, this is so long.
Yeah.
It's like a whole 4 chapters.
It's a long one.
Lots of juicy stuff though. So much, dude. So much juicy stuff.
We purposely saved some of it from the last chapter for this chapter, just so you could bring your insightful insights.
Dude, I really want to talk about the Nephilim.
I know that they kept bugging me about the Nephilim. They were like, "Tell us about the Nephilim. Tell us about the Nephilim." And every time I was like, "No, I know Evan wants to talk about that. You have to wait for next week."
Nephilim. I love talking about the Nephilim, dude. And I've been talking to my
Screw the
girlfriend.
Nephilim.
Dude, that's what I'm saying in a way.
I mean, in a way, yeah.
In a way, screw the Nephilim.
So
No,
before we get into
no,
what the
but
Nephilim actually are, is there's an interesting thing here, right? In that it mentions the Nephilim here, and it implies that the flood wiped them out. But then later in the Judges and in the Kings and stuff like that, they mention the Nephilim still being there, and like Goliath and them are assumed to maybe be a part of that, right? Like,
yeah, like Goliath is probably a descendant from a Nephilim.
Yeah. So what's the deal with implying they're wiped out here, and then actually no, they're still there.
The thing about it is, I recently watched, like, have you ever watched that YouTube channel, Inspiring Philosophy? It's like a Christian channel, and they talk about, like, certain, like, points of views that, like, people have in the Bible. And the guy who runs the channel takes a completely different view of Nephilim than what I would say most people probably have.
There's quite a few different views I've heard people take.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of when it says the sons of God and it's talking about these mighty men of renown. I'm taking that as literal as I can take it. Like, I do think that is, like, you know, angels or fallen angels having relationships with human women and creating half-breed, giant, you know, like, almost godlike people. And I would even go as far to say as, like, because you know how I've talked to you before about, like, Nimrod and how I think Nimrod is Gilgamesh. Like, literally, they seem like the exact same person. If you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, and like, that's the thing, is, like, the Bible's gonna have a negative view of Nimrod. But, the Epic of Gilgamesh, of course, he's gonna write, or the people who worship him are gonna write an epic story about him. And it's quite funny that in the story you find out, oh wait, he's like 1 or 2/3 God, and like part man. Like, that sounds like a Nephilim.
Oh yeah. And
so it's super interesting.
So Cole has a comment saying, "Are the Nephilim Neanderthals?" or however you say it.
I've never heard of that theory actually, but I don't think so, because the typical, like, if we want to talk about like what, like, the science community would basically say like a Neanderthal looked like is they were very short. Well, they weren't very short, but they were on the shorter side. Like humans were typically taller.
Yeah, that's an
So-
interesting point.
So like for us to classify like the Nephilim as well, they were probably Neanderthals. Like,
Yeah, but
I
how
don't
did you
know.
know you weren't there?
yo,
Well, how do you know
Yo,
the
that's a-
flood really happened? You
yo,
weren't there.
that's a good point.
I was
actually.
there.
Okay,
there for that
okay.
part.
My bad, my bad. I didn't realize you were there. I didn't realize you were there. My bad.
But no, dude, I've heard people just say, well, no, I think the Nephilim, when it talks about like mighty men of renown, these are just men who were trying to make a name for themselves, you know, like, you know, like leaders of like tribes, you know what I mean? And like they were taking more than one wife, and because I mean that's like a huge thing, or a huge theme throughout Genesis is this whole idea of polygamy and how it's super wrong.
Yeah,
And that's why Noah is super special, because he literally only has one wife, and all of his sons only have one wife. So I don't know. I've always taken the literal. Yeah, I think they're like half angelic, half human giants, and I actually think that's where like a lot of like how do I say it? Like a lot of like where a lot of gods come from. Like the idea of like certain mythology. Like one theory that's very, I would say, popular today is the ancient alien theory. People are super into aliens, bro.
That is true. People are
And how,
super
like,
into that.
Like, and that's the thing is like 10 years ago or maybe like 15 years ago, like these people got made fun of. Today, it's like very much like now, like pretty much everybody who's super into science, anybody who's super into like just trying to like look deeper into like the universe and stuff, like no, like they're like pretty much convinced that we come from ancient aliens, and like that's where these people like, you know, the Egyptian gods come from and the Greek gods.
Dude, I can't wait to get into. I've learned so much about the Egyptian mythology recently. I can't wait to get into that once we get to Exodus, because there's some really fascinating theological things that are brought up there.
Oh, absolutely, especially with like the plagues and stuff too.
And Mayot,
But,
I can't wait to bring. Mayot is way too complicated to explain here, but I'm very excited to bring that up later. Okay, so we've got. So Zev, your question about Shem and Japheth, I do want to bring that up, but I want to save that for the end because I do have a comment on that.
I do have some stuff I want to say about that too, actually.
So yeah, so I do want to comment on that, but I'll save that for the end once we get to the end of the narrative. So I will come back to that. I promise you on that. So the reason I say, so my translation also says the Nephilim were there in those days and also afterward. The reason I say that this seems to imply that they were wiped out with the flood, even with the comment and also afterward, is because it's talking about the wickedness of the earth and how terrible everything was, and it seems to be bringing up the Nephilim as a point of saying they were part of the wickedness that God was wiping out.
Yeah.
It seems to be implied in that statement. I mean, I guess you could say that the Nephilim were wiped out and then more Nephilim were created afterwards, later on.
I think there was just a huge like influx of Nephilim at the time, and that's kind of why I think God was like, oh well, Noah, like he's literally, I think like when it talks about Noah being pure, like literally his blood was pure. Like he did not have any sort of Nephilim within him. Like he actually comes from like a pure line. So that's what I've always taken it as.
That's Jay Kizzy.
I just think that when you look at like the Egyptian gods, you'll see that a lot of them are like half animal, like half human, like and like the Anunnaki, which are like the weird like angelic beings of like the Mesopotamia, you know. Like I just think that those gods were literally just fallen angels and or Nephilim. Yeah. And they have been like, because like I don't like ruling out being like, oh well, these gods that these people that have, you know, they've created, or I don't even want to say created, like, oh, they worship these gods from like thousands of years ago and like, you know, Greek mythology. Like I don't think that they just made them up. I literally think that those were people.
Well,
Like, you
on
know what I'm
top
saying?
of that, like Baal transcended generations and nations.
Oh yeah.
Like Baal
yeah, no,
was
absolutely.
probably a demon or something, right?
Yeah.
But also on top of that, that wouldn't have been a contradictory statement to the Israelites, because contrary to popular belief, they didn't become. I forget the two terms. There's Why am I forgetting the term? Worship of one God, mono something.
Monotheism.
Monotheism. Why was I blanking on that?
Yeah.
So there's another term. There's monotheism and then there's mono something. And technically the Israelites weren't strictly monotheistic until far later, around like David and Solomon's time. Because, you know, they talk about God being the God of gods. And they talk about other gods being in his heavenly court and other spiritual beings and stuff like that. Like, they more believed, like, oh, these other gods and these other spirits exist. It's just that our God transcends all of them. Like, they weren't truly monotheistic until later on. So, like, they wouldn't have disagreed with anything that you're saying. Like, they would have said that, like, these spirits truly were at work at the time.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is like they could have called them like, you know, God of gods, but I think, you know, with like further knowledge today, we can look at it and be like, okay, well these aren't gods, these are just angelic beings, like they're just angels or demons or Nephilim or,
Exactly.
And so I've always thought that was super interesting because anytime anybody brings up like aliens, man, I'm always like, those are probably just demons, man.
Probably. Dude, the same thing with ghosts. The Nathan and Luke and Alex and them, they always bring up ghosts, and I'm like, dude, they're just demons.
Dude,
like,
like, oh yeah, we just talked to this ghost for fun. I'm like, dude, what?
It's a demon. Don't talk to it.
Like, what do you mean, man? I mean, and like stuff with like a lot of people. Well, I would say like a large majority of Christians wouldn't even realize that like some of those like old pagan gods had like a lot of power, like Dagon. I think Dagon's like a Babylonian god. Like
yeah.
Like surprisingly, like they say like, oh no, that god had like actually like some power. Like it wasn't just like a statue they created and they just worshipped and talked to you. Like no, it actually like, had certain abilities.
Yeah, like the power came from somewhere. Like the prophets of Dagon had some power that was given to them. The prophets of Egypt had some power that was given to them, so that they could do wondrous stuff. Like they didn't get that power from nowhere.
Exactly.
So Zev comments about where did the Nephilim go then?
No, that's actually a really talked about. That's been talked about for a long time. I've talked to a lot of people about that.
So I had a professor who was talking about, because he's a professor of Joshua and Judges and archaeology, and he took those up because everybody dismisses Joshua and Judges because of how ruthless they are, and it's like, well, what do we do about Joshua where it's like every other chapter he's wiping out another people group off the face of the planet? And it's like, how do you like compensate for that as a Christian, right? Like, how do you just justify genocide being written? And one of the points he brings up is that a lot of those groups were probably groups like Nephilim and stuff like that. They weren't like really human. Like they were half demon children, like that Joshua was being commanded to take off the face of the planet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even when you look back into like when Joshua and like the other 10 spies, like, you know, they snuck into the land of Canaan, you know, to see the promised land. And then they came back with a report and they were like, oh, there's no way. Like, there's like crazy giants.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do anything. Like, they're going to wipe us out. They're going to destroy us. And Josh was like, what? No. Like, and so, like, it kind of goes back to show you, yeah, they probably were Nephilim that they were wiping out. That's so interesting.
So...
Yeah, I love Nephilim.
So, or is there more stuff you have about Nephilim?
Let me see. I'm trying not to get too wacky, because when you talk about Nephilim, it can get kind of weird.
That is fair. That is fair.
Because my old college roommate, Robert, would always be like, dude, like, seriously, like, their evidence is everywhere. Have you seen some of these mountains? Some of these mountains literally have faces of humans. And I'm like, nah, they show me pictures, and I'm like, whoa!
Yeah. Yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, I mean, it is true that like the idea of giants has kind of always been a thing all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And like the idea of just gods in general, all around the world.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I have heard some people say that, yeah, they're just men. They're just powerful tribal leader men who just had multiple wives, and that's why they're men of renown. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like they had a literal approach to it, and I feel like we should still have a literal approach. I mean, that's just how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all I got on Nephilim, I think.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? Like, it's not like God is ruthless for no reason, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
he's
No, usually there's a very clear purpose behind it. I mean,
Yeah.
wasn't there like one group of people, like their whole big deal was like, oh, we're just gonna put our babies in furnaces.
well, that's the thing, right? Like, so that's what the same professor I was just talking about a little bit ago mentions, right? Like, he mentions the fact that these people groups that were being wiped out were either like Nephilim groups, or they were like ancient day Nazis. Like, like you talk about World War II nowadays, and nobody argues that taking out the Nazis was a bad thing. It's
Yeah,
the same
well-
deal back then. Those groups that were being wiped out were people who sacrificed their children for idols and did like terrible stuff like that. Like it was not like they were normal people groups that were being wiped out. Like, they were very demonic and
Yeah.
like twisted people groups.
I mean, pretty twisted to the core. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're coming to a point where you're gathering up the whole community, be like, all right, everybody, I
Mhm.
know it's ancient times and it's very hard to even have a child in the first place due to illnesses and just, you know, having a child's hard, especially
Yeah.
at that point. Let's just take them and throw them in burning furnaces.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get a little bit of rain. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
what? That's twisted, bro.
But like, yeah, it's crazy. But like, Zev, I think we were talking about this another stream a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was me and somebody else, right? But it's like, this goes to the question that a lot of Christians ask nowadays, which is essentially, why can't God just forgive people? Like, why did Jesus have to come and die? Why do people have to go to hell? Stuff like that. And like, that's a tough question to answer until you realize, if God is all good, he can't allow bad things to happen. Like you don't allow bad things to happen if you're a good judge, right? Like, if you're a judge and you have a mass murderer in front of you, you don't just forgive them and set them back out into the wild. You wouldn't call that person a good judge. You wouldn't call them somebody who makes good decisions, right? Like, that wouldn't be a proper judge. That wouldn't be somebody who is a good judge. So God is the exact same way, right? Like, you can't look at a mass murderer and that's the crazy thing, right? Is God does give that person a chance. Like, he straight up offers that person, right? Like, you have a chance to get off scot-free here. It doesn't matter that you were a mass murderer. Like, you have a chance to ask for forgiveness and believe. But if you don't do that, I can't let that off the hook. Which is the even crazier thing. Like, he can be an all-good judge by punishing wrongdoing, and by still offering a second chance to people in like that, right?
I was just talking to my girlfriend about that exact thing, or that exact topic last night. I was like, well, I mean, we talk about how God's like, oh, why doesn't he just, you know, get over it? Why doesn't he just forgive? But I'm like, dude, like, how many times is God gonna be like, as much as I should just get rid of you, I love you, and I won't. Like, how many times is he gonna like be like, or you know how it says in like the book of Hosea, where it's like, oh, Israel, I know you've cheated on me and you've done this to me, but how could I give you up? How could I give you up like Ephraim, or how could I give you up like another place I can't remember?
Yeah, and like he talks, he like cries almost. He's like, I love you so much and I always accept you back as my wife, but you constantly abuse me and reject me and cheat on me with other people. And like, that's a sad picture because that's all of us. Like, we are all exactly the same as Israel. Like, God loves us so much and constantly accepts us back and everything, but it's an abusive relationship on our end. Because we constantly reject God. We constantly cheat on him with other gods and other things and push him away and then just come back whenever things are bad, right? Like, we're the bad person in the relationship, not God. Oh well, anyways, we've got like a million other topics.
True.
So the next thing I have, like just, sorry, were you saying something?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting mad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just looking through the passage, the next thing that I have on my list, right, is, and you might want to go into this, right, because this kind of starts going into Gilgamesh, but talking about the size of the ark, right? Like, to an ancient person that wouldn't make sense, but if we actually build that today, that's about the same type of proportions we would use for like a cruise boat.
Oh yeah.
Like, an ancient person wouldn't have understood like those are the proper proportions to make a big boat that wouldn't capsize. There's no way. Like, even if this story was made up, they wouldn't understand that. And then that goes into like Epic of Gilgamesh and the other ancient flood narratives, is that they don't have realistically proportioned boats.
Oh yeah, like you mean like in their narratives, it's not like a very realistic one.
Yeah, like in the Epic of Gilgamesh, it's ridiculous. It's literally just a giant box.
Is that what it is? I've literally, like, I know the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but the part where the flood comes in, I'm literally, like, lost. Like, I don't know where that part actually happens. So that's why I'm always, like, so confused about, like, wait, the flood comes from this? Like, but, yeah, no, I mean, it's not very crazy. I mean, actually, I wonder if I can send this in the Discord chat. I have, like, a picture in my Bible of, like, how big the Ark would have been compared to, like, the Titanic and Queen Mary II and, like, these huge boats, and, like, it's not very big. Like,
No.
it's big, but it's not, like, ginormous.
Yeah, like for an ancient person, it's very big, but for us today, it's not crazy big.
Definitely, absolutely.
Like,
Because even, like,
yeah.
I think the Santa Maria's on here, and that's literally, like, maybe 1/5 of the Ark.
But even still, that's like 1300s, 1400s?
Yeah,
AD?
like, that's not very long ago compared to this.
Yeah, compared to this.
So, yeah, no, I mean, but, like, you know, up to today's standards, yeah, it's not very big at all.
But it has the proper proportions, which there's no way they would have
Yeah.
understood that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I got, like, a whole diagram of it here. It looks pretty sick. Yeah, there's like 3 levels, right? Or we read that, right? There's
Yeah,
three.
it's
There's
3
three
decks.
levels. It was about 450 feet long, 75 feet wide. Wait. Oh, unless you're using a longer cubit, because I guess they have, like, I don't really know which. I guess there's like a shorter cubit and a longer cubit, so depending on which one you're using, it could have been 500 feet. That's interesting.
So, that's an interesting question, right? So how then do you fit 17.4 million animals on a cruise ship?
This is where.
And you guys can maybe add to this, right? But I just want to make it real quick. I've found 2 theories that people on different ends of the spectrum support. And obviously there's other theories, but I find these 2 to be the ones that make the most sense to me. And I don't know which one could be true, but I'm just saying these are the 2 that I've found that make the most sense to me. So if you go to the Creation Museum and the Ark, at like down Kentucky, right?
It's in Kentucky, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not close to me.
Ken
but-
Ham.
Yeah, Ken Ham and them. But I mean, whether you agree with everything that's said there or not, right? I won't bring up the whole arc discussion. That's a whole other discussion for another time because we could get way off track if we start talking about that.
Yeah.
But how they say it happens, and honestly is somewhat realistic to me, is that at this point in time, creatures hadn't quote-unquote evolved or mutated to all the different types of species we see today, right? Like there wouldn't have been hundreds of different types of dogs and hundreds of different kinds of cats and hundreds of different types of birds and stuff like that, right? There would have just been the specific animal kinds that God created at creation. So they argue that there was a canine kind that God took onto the ark, or that Noah took onto the ark, and there was a feline kind that was taken onto the ark. And they kind of support it, right? They look at how they use Charles Darwin's own mutation evidence for birds, right? And they look at these other species and how over time you could have gotten all these different dogs over time just because of mutation. And like all these different types of cats over time, and like all these different species. And if you boil it down, I forget how many they said at the ark. I think it was like 14,000 different kinds or something like that. Like a much more realistic number to get that many animals onto a 3-deck boat, right?
Yeah.
Which that theory makes sense to me, right? Like if you argue on that side, this is not very long after creation. You could have reasonably done something like that. And like Cole said, baby dinos, you know? If it's a really big animal like an elephant or something like that, you can get babies that would fit much better. On the other end of the spectrum is another debate that makes sense to me. And this side of the debate says that the flood was a localized event that still wiped out the earth, quote unquote, because humans hadn't dispersed at that point. They still lived in the Fertile Crescent region of Israel next to the Mediterranean Sea. And they have good evidence for that too, right? So whenever the Israelites use the word earth, they just mean land, right? So whenever they say the whole earth went to war, they're just talking about how the land went to war. Whenever they talk about the earth and the whole world, they're just talking about what land they can see. And if you look at that region on a map, and you get a topographic map, that entire region is so much further below the earth than many other places of the world. Like, if you look at it, there's the Mediterranean Sea, and then it's like a hill going down like hundreds of feet into this, they call it the, like, whenever they talk about it in the Bible, it's plains and it's hills and it's like a valley. It's a valley. The whole region of Israel and Galilee and everything, it's a valley. So the argument is that God did wipe out all of the humans that existed at that point, but he didn't have to wipe out all of the animals. Noah just had to save the animals that were in that region, and then the entire Mediterranean Sea flooded that hundreds of miles square region, which still would have been a very massive flood. It still would have killed everyone that was on the earth at that point. It's just that Noah was called to, save the human race and the animals that lived in that area. Both of those arguments I feel like have good grounding. Sorry, I went on that tangent a little bit longer than I was expecting.
Wait, what was that
No,
second
absolutely.
one?
But yeah, those are the two that I've come
The
across
second
that
one
I
that's
find to be...
What was the one you just said, Logan? That you said?
So
Old.
the argument is that it was a local flood. And to not go into everything I just said, the idea is if you look into it biblically, it works because whenever Israelites and Hebrews used the word earth, like if you look at other examples in the Old Testament, it just means land, right? So whenever they say the earth went to war, they just mean the land around them went to war,
Cool.
right? So the idea is that...
I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
That
So there's a
they're just
lot...
local.
Yeah,
But-
so it was the entire Mediterranean, like the entire region of Israel, Galilee, and the Fertile Crescent like a huge portion of land if you look at it on a
Yeah,
map.
but like, relative to like, how high is that above or below sea level in
Oh,
comparison?
the whole. Well, that's what I was saying. The
in
entire
comparison
region
to
is
the rest of the world.
very low. I don't know if you missed it or not, but I was saying if you look at it on a topographic map, it is very, very, very low below the Mediterranean Sea. So like whenever
Yeah,
they
because
talk
Israel's
about it
really
being,
low
yeah,
below.
like whenever they talk
the
about it
sea,
being
right?
a valley, they mean it. The entire
Like, it's a
region
valley.
between the
for
Mediterranean and the Sea of
everyone.
Galilee is a huge valley, like a huge valley.
So there was just no life outside of that valley then?
Well, no, the
'Cause I'm
argument
not-
is that God was still able to wipe out all humans and all life in that area, and Noah just had to save the life that was in that region. And that's how he was able to fit all the animals on the ark.
Yeah, but there's no life outside of that region? Like, no one branched out further
Well,
than that?
I get what Logan's
The
saying.
humans
because
didn't,
I
at
think-
least.
Yeah, like at least humans didn't because
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 Babel
humans
hadn't
didn't
happened.
split until Babel, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
after the flood. So
So
I get that.
At the very least, humans did not split out of
Yeah,
that
I don't
area.
know. I'm not buying it.
I'm like half and half on it because I remember the first time you told me the slogan, and I was like, I thought I would have never believed it.
I think
Like
both
seriously.
I think both arguments have very good pros and cons to them. Like
Oh, definitely.
on
I've
the
always been a proponent of the kinds theory.
Yeah.
I've always that obviously because that's just what I grew up with. That's what I learned in school. That's what I've learned through research. But the
Mhm.
local idea is smart. I mean, if you look at that area too, like you're not gonna like tell me that that's like the most oil reserved area on the
Yeah.
entire planet.
like that like there's
that
scientific
just kinda
evidence
shows you.
yeah, and there's scientific evidence today to support that too, right? So there's the fact that there's so much
Yeah.
oil in that region, there would have had to have been a lot of death. The fact that there's so many other
Yeah.
flood narratives that come out of that specific region of the world. If you look at the sedentary layers, it's very evident that a huge flood had happened in that region around that time, that we don't find that evidence elsewhere in the world, right? So like if you look at the Grand Canyon, you look at all these other places, they don't have the same sedentary evidence of a massive flood that region of the world does. And then there's other like logistical evidence for that argument. So there's the idea. So the one argument is, well, he didn't have to take fish on the ark because, they just swim. But logistically speaking, if the entire Earth was covered in salt water, how would all the fresh water live? Right? So, but there's also cons to that argument too, right? Like, it's not that it's a perfect argument to say that it was just a local flood. There's definitely... Yeah, and I don't know where I fall. Like I said before I started the argument, right? Like, I don't fall on either of those sides. I don't think that necessarily one is completely true or the other. But I think out of all, there's so many different arguments for the flood. I think out of all of them that I've come across, those are the two that have the most merit to me.
I don't know about that fish part, because you were just saying that there's one kind of canine and then what's it called?
And that would be an argument on the worldwide flood side.
Yeah, that's the one I kind of lean with more because it is true with like mutations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like there probably was a canine kind and then a feline kind, and also that's just what I've been taught too.
Yeah.
So I have a bias.
And there's an interesting argument if you watch the debate. The argument that scientists would use against that is, and it's a legitimate point of debate, is because of how many trillions of species we find on Earth today that have been documented, and if you claim that the Great Flood happened about 10,000 years ago, the claim is that mutations would have had to have happened so frequently that we would be able to document 3 new mutations every week to this day. Because of
Wait, there's that many?
Yeah. Like, if you do the
Okay.
math, that's the argument that they would use in return.
It's stupid.
Dang.
But you could argue that, something's messed up in that math. You could argue that maybe there were more kinds present than just the 14,000 that the creationists would use. You could argue something in between, right? Like, maybe there were more species than 14,000 and they were all taken on the ark, and that would definitely skew the number down a lot more than that number.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely get the issue of we need to knock the number down at some rate to then figure out that if it really was a worldwide flood, it would have to be in the thousands.
At some point,
Not
you
more
would have
than
to,
that.
yeah, just logistically speaking, if you needed to fit every species on the boat, and we know the size of the boat, you would have to knock down the number.
Dude, I feel like every time we have this conversation, I'm more and more on the local side. Like every time I talk about this, I always inch more and more to the local flood than the worldwide.
I go really back and forth. Like there's good arguments on both sides. There really is.
Yeah, but I feel like the more you keep showing me about a local flood, it's just like that's probably what happened.
Mhm.
Especially if we're talking about like, well, if that were the case, that there were just kinds and then that mutated from species from there, it had to have happened so fast to where we would see a new species. Or how many you say, like 3 every week?
Well, like let's say it wasn't even
And
that.
we don't.
Well, yeah, and let's say it wasn't even that specific number. Let's say it wasn't 3 every week. Even still, we would be able to see them within our lifetime, and we haven't
like
seen
we-
them even three,
like we would be
3,
able-
5, 6 generations back.
Yeah, like exactly. Like within the past 500 years, we should have seen some sort of mutation, if that were the case.
Yeah, and we don't really beyond like dog breeds and small things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta catch up here. So kind of like the World War wasn't. Yeah, so going back to the war, yeah, like, so whenever we talk about the world today, we have a different mindset than they would have had back then. So whenever we talk about world, we truly consider the whole world. Whenever they say Earth, they're they're literally just meaning the land, essentially. Say that makes sense? Yeah, no, that's a good point too. So Cole makes some arguments great on the creationist side. Earth is not as perfect at the time of the flood, and God's hand is always in things, so more mutation could have happened back then than in the day. And I could add to that by saying people did age slower back then, from what it seems like we talked in last week's stream. You know, like there's certain things that God definitely seemed to have a hand in altering in things like that.
Yeah, true. I guess we don't really know, because like you said, like people lived longer and stuff too. And like we don't. That's just the thing, is that the world is constantly changing, because it went from people lived longer to then people died younger to now modern medicine, people live longer again.
Yeah, we're
So-
actually reversing it again, back up to people living longer.
You know what I don't get
What's up?
is that, like Evan was saying earlier, that what's it called? It was hard to have kids during that time or whatever because they wouldn't make it past. Then
Oh,
how
yeah.
are people living to 900, like 600 to 900 years? How does that make sense?
Like how
Like, I get how babies are like more vulnerable, but if they were struggling to have those, or if it was like more difficult to have, why weren't people dying younger?
Well, I guess
Like you see that in Africa, like people are, like kids struggle to survive, but also so do the people. So why is it not that way?
Well, so
with
I'd
that?
actually argue, so people only lived that long before the flood. Once you get past the flood, it's almost like God said people shouldn't live this long anymore. So it's very possible that before the flood, the infant mortality rates were basically none. Like people just
Yeah, but
didn't
you were
seem
saying
to
the
die.
Nephilim were sacrificing their children, but that was hard.
That
to
was
have
after. That was
Is that after?
that was during the time of Joshua.
Okay.
Oh gosh, and
Yeah.
it's actually scary. Like the professor I'm talking about that studies Joshua and Judges, and he does all the archaeology stuff. He's gone to those sites, and they're like scary. Like,
oh yeah, no, you can
like-
like actually like go to those places.
like to dig them up. And like he talks about when you go to those places, you almost literally feel the heaviness of the place. Like he says it's that bad. Like you go there and you're like, even to this day, like you feel a heaviness happened in the place just because like it was so bad what they used to do there.
Oh yeah.
But that would, so those comments about the infant mortality rates, that would have been during the time of Joshua and Judges that they were sacrificing.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how the cultures worked before the flood, so we don't know if they would have been sacrificing children or anything because
Yeah.
we don't have any evidence for
Well,
what
what
the
I
flood
just
looked
think-
like
What
before
would
the
have
flood.
changed within that gap then that would have made?
I think sin
Die
has a lot
more.
to do with it. I think sin does.
but
that's
sin was
that's
already,
my personal.
sin was already prevalent. before
So-
the
Yeah, I know, but I think as time went on, sin just keeps killing more and more. It's
Mhm.
just like with like us, like yeah, like when we live, the more of a sinless life that we live, usually we live longer. But the more sin that we're exposed to over time, sin kills. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Sin
Well-
literally destroys what it touches. So
And-
that's why I kind of think like as time went on and sin just keeps going and going and going, I think humans just start to die.
Yeah, and people argue because people only lived that long before the flood. Like as soon as you get past
Yeah,
the flood,
true.
people don't live that long anymore, and people like they live like realistic ages that we would today. And people argue that some people argue that it had to do with the shifting of the because like people argue the flood is what tilted the axis of the earth, and that's why certain creatures couldn't live anymore. And they
Ooh,
also
I've never
argue
heard of that. That's interesting.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, I've heard a couple people back
Yeah, I've
back
never
home
heard
make
of
that
that.
argument. They say the flood is what tilted the earth. The flood is what caused Pangea. The flood is what caused certain creatures not to be able to live anymore, like the dinosaurs. And the flood is what
Yeah.
caused people not to live as long anymore because something happened with the earth physically that wouldn't allow us to. And I've heard other people say God just limited our aging because he saw how wicked we got whenever we were able to live for so
Oh.
long, and he just
Yeah,
said no, like you cannot live that long anymore.
I actually want to talk about that.
Okay.
But wouldn't have someone in the Bible been told that, and then it documented?
Like what? Like the thing about like humans and how they shouldn't like live as long as they do.
Yeah, like wouldn't that
Because,
not?
yeah, that. Well, that's the thing. Do you remember when we were at Matt's house the other night and we were talking about that with Peter? Do you remember that? I was talking to Pete about it. So, when it talks about, hold on, let me get to it in my Bible real quick.
All right, while you're looking for it, Zev makes a comment. Kids struggle to survive, but so do
Okay.
people. Did he just say people aren't kids? Or kids aren't people? Bert, any
No,
comments?
I'm.
I know it's a joke. It's a joke.
Is he joking?
Yeah, it's a joke.
Well, it wasn't very funny. First off, it's probably the stupidest joke I've ever heard. To be honest with you, skill issue.
Skill issue.
Ratioed.
Literal dog water.
Oh, here we go.
Dog water.
So,
I'm sorry.
me-
I'm sorry, Zev. I thought it was funny.
So me and Pete were
I
talking
didn't.
about how it was super interesting that, or no, I guess we were just sitting there. And Pete was like, "Yeah, it's super interesting that it talks about like the whole like story with the Nephilim and like the flood, and God at one point was like, yeah, humans' days are numbered 120." He goes,
Oh,
and I think it's
yeah.
super interesting that God won't let anybody live past 120. And to me, I was like, what? Because I used to think that. But then my perspective on that completely changed because I don't know if it was just like a class I went to, if it was like a video I watched. But then I heard it was, no, it's not 120 years that people can only live to, but it's 100, like that's not the human age limit, but like it's 120 years till God floods the earth.
Yeah.
That's what, and he was like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm not sure though, because I used to think the other way, so I'm not entirely sure.
No, that is a good point.
Wait, what do you mean it's 120 years total? From when?
From when God told Noah to build the ark to whenever the flood happened.
Oh. Okay.
That yeah.
I don't
that's
know. It just
interesting.
doesn't seem to be a definite answer. So.
Well, yeah, and
what
that's
makes me-
just what you're gonna come across. Like the older you go back in the Bible, the harder it's gonna be able to come up with the answers. Like especially Genesis 1 through 11. There's so little answers to anything during that time period that pretty much everything is speculation, right? And once you get closer and closer to modern day, it becomes more clear. Like there's some things that we like, especially you get into the time of the New Testament, like we can date things very well, and we can find historical evidence, and we can find people's names, and we can find records, and you get into the old parts of the Old Testament, and we can date some of those things, but not others, and we can find some of those studies, but we can't find other ones. And it's just the farther back you go, the less we logistically know about.
Wait, what are you guys talking about? Sorry, I had to mute my mic for a second.
You. Wait, who joined the Discord? Did someone else join?
I think it was Gavin.
Um,
Yeah, I had to mute my mic for a second. I was talking.
but yeah, no, we were just talking about the same thing. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I'm wrong on that or if that's
Yeah, I don't know. I actually never thought about that before.
because I did used to think, oh yeah, I mean, so that's the limit then. Nobody can live past 120.
Yeah.
To be honest,
actually,
and I could be wrong and absolutely stupid about this, but I think there are people on record who have lived past 120.
Yeah, Zev just mentioned when there was a person who died in 97 that was 122.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there are people who live
Yeah.
past that.
Prove that, atheist.
Now,
But yeah, no, that is an interesting point to bring up, right? Because if we're discounting all of the ages before the flood, you know, like we have reversed aging. Like we have gotten to the point where instead of, you know, very heavy mortality rates and people dying very early, now we can consistently live a lot longer because of modern medicine, which is a new thing in all of human history, which is crazy.
it was like a wave of live super long to slowly decreasing over time and slowly increasing over time.
Yeah.
And who knows what where we'll get to, depending on
knows?
how much time we have left.
Mm-hmm. Well, so
I mean,
there's...
who knows in the future? People could be living to like 200.
Well, it's scary, right? Because that's a conversation that a lot of churches are having nowadays. Like, there's books being written on this. There's scholars that are talking about it. There's, like, it's a conversation that churches are beginning to mandatorily have. Is first of all the conversation of what do we do when people will be able to age hundreds of years again, right? Like, how do we deal with that as the church? And second of all, the conversation in science as of recent has been, how do we, and like, you know, you like, I don't believe this is going to be possible, but the current conversation in science is that we are very close, probably within our lifetime, of solving mortality. And their solutions are either somehow we find a way to stop aging the body, or the one that more people are ascribing to is the idea of sleeves, where you can just upload your current consciousness into a new body and just keep doing that over and over and over again, right? And given I don't think that would be possible, but if it were to happen one day, we as Christians would have to have a response to that, and that's scary, right?
Well, that's the thing, is like, I guess you would have to see, or you'd have to ask yourself if you actually think that's possible. Me personally, at this moment, I don't think that could ever happen, ever.
But Christians
to
are
me, it just
beginning to have
doesn't
the
make
conversation because if it were possible, we would have to have a response to it, and it would have to be thought
definitely.
out, right? So
if that was possible, then I wouldn't know what to think anymore about the world around me.
Exactly. So that's why they're having the conversation, right? Is we don't think it's possible.
It would change your worldview.
Yeah. So it's like the same thing like Christians back in the day would have conversations about aliens, right? Like, we don't think aliens are real, but if they were, what would the Christian response be to that? So it's essentially the same thing, right? Like, we don't think it's true, but let's say tomorrow out on the news, it was true, right? Like, let's say tomorrow it was on the news, they did it with somebody. Well, how would we respond? Because people would look to us immediately for a response, and we would have to have a thought-out response to it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So that's interesting.
But that's the thing, though, is like, it just depends, because being a Christian, you're really, like, there's a lot of things that I can just, like, hear about, or, like, take in information about, and then, like, automatically be like, nope, that's false. Like, even though, like, somebody could prove it or something. Like, one thing that Maya would always talk about is, yeah, if aliens came, all the Christians are just going to call them demons.
Yeah, no,
Because
exactly.
that's all the Christians are going to do. And I looked at him and I was thinking to myself, yeah, you're absolutely correct.
And
I
that would be
would.
terrible. Oh, dude, I don't know.
I absolutely would probably. Well, it depends though. Like if aliens came, no, I don't know if they came, but it just depends on how you see it.
Yeah.
Because the rapture could happen, and he could think, oh, alien abduction, like and like that's the thing. It just depends on
Yeah.
which side of the coin you're on, I suppose.
Well, because like the church has been historically on the bad side of scientific revolutions, right? Like historically, the church
For a
has
lot
been
of stuff,
known.
yeah.
Like we've been known for burning and killing people and outright rejecting stuff that scientists come along and say. Sometimes to our benefit, but 90% of the time to our detriment, right?
Yeah.
So we just, like, I think the mindset has become nowadays, like, we have to be better than that. Like, we have to actually be able to be in communication and have better responses than just, oh, this guy thinks that the Earth revolves around the sun? Let's burn him at the stake.
Yeah. I mean, it all just depends, I guess. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know, that's the thing, though, is... But that's the thing, is, like, I feel like when it comes to aliens, that may be more groundbreaking than, oh, the Earth revolves around the sun.
Yeah, aliens would
In
be
my
very
opinion.
groundbreaking.
Because, like, oh, okay, so, like, if someone said... Okay, so let's say, like, if we didn't believe that, or I didn't believe that, or whatever, and someone said, dude, the Earth revolves around the sun, I'd be like, okay, so what is that supposed to mean?
Well, I
Like,
guess...
but I think aliens, I think it's, oh, no, you're telling me there's actual sentient beings from other planets?
Yeah.
This is a pretty big deal considering our faith.
Well, I guess
Like, this is pretty groundbreaking.
I guess that it was pretty groundbreaking for the church back then whenever it came to that specific topic, though, because they
I suppose,
believed, like back then, they believed that God made humans the center of everything and that the heavens revolved around them, right? So for that to be shattered,
Oh, I see what you're saying,
like, because
yeah.
that was their fundamental belief, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I guess you could argue, right? Like it would be the same thing with aliens, right? Like we as Christians have this instinct, and I'm included in this, so I'm not like saying I'm different. Like I agree with you. I think it would be very groundbreaking and very against what we believe as Christians if we did discover sentient aliens. But that being said, there's not technically anything biblically that says that it's wrong. So it would have been the same thing with them. Like all of those Christians had it deep down built into them, like God made us the center and all of the heavens revolves around us. So for that to be completely shattered was very like groundbreaking for them.
I guess, yeah, but my problem with it though is like, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna say this. So it's like, so it's the fact that, okay, so yeah, that is a core belief that a lot of Christians back in the day held, and they're very certain that that's the case. But the thing about it though is, like you said, like the Bible doesn't say anything for or really against that idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, it's like, I don't know. When it comes to aliens and it comes to other sentient beings, it's like, well, like now, like literally, like in Revelation when it talks about the new heavens and the new earth, and like, and who's all included in that, like that's really only just humans.
Yeah.
Like swiping pages.
I don't know what that is.
That's me. It's
Oh.
So
Yeah,
so Zeb does make an interesting point. Their years weren't the same as our years, right? So they didn't have a what's the term? They didn't have a solar calendar, they had a lunar calendar. So their years were actually slightly shorter than ours. That being said, taking that into account, if we do go back to the argument that God numbered their days to 120 years, that person that lived to be 122 would have been less than 120 years old. Technically.
That's a good point.
So
That's a good point.
that is a good point on Zeb's side.
I wonder if Pete thought about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've never thought about that argument though, so I don't know where I would
I
land
know.
on that.
I never would have Never would have thought about that.
Yeah, I would.
I guess I didn't consider the fact that they used a different calendar.
Yeah, because it was.
Well, and if the flood did slow the rotation of the Earth and other things,
Ooh.
I don't know, because I read a thing. It was the Three Gorges Dam they built in China slowed the rotation of the Earth,
Yeah.
and that's like a tiny bit of water.
Well, I guess that wouldn't be. I guess a year would be with the rotation around the sun, though. Would there be any way that
That's
the? Would there be any way that the Earth would have sped up going around the sun / decreased its speed going around the sun? Like, is there any scientific evidence for that?
I don't know.
When
I
did
mean,
Abraham
I
die?
don't know that anything would matter enough. Asteroids could hit in the direction we're already going fast enough and add momentum, or the opposite direction, and
Yeah.
we'd lose momentum.
That's true.
The atmosphere is slowly escaping. If there
Yeah.
was more water in the atmosphere, that would be more mass, so it'd slowly be escaping.
Yeah.
The sun's getting smaller. I don't know if any of these things like add up to like a noticeable or like measurable amount, but
Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. I might want to look
Do you
into
know
that.
how old Abraham was when he died?
Oh, I
Just
think we do.
just to think about it, because I know that he at least made it to 100.
Yeah. No, that's a good question, though.
Did he though?
He
I
would have
think so.
died
'Cause I think he had
around
Isaac
25.
at dude, he had Isaac
Oh my gosh, I literally
Pretty
guessed it to the chapter. 25. This is the length of Abraham's life, 175 years.
Dude, then that just says
So
it
it's
right
not
there.
the age. It wasn't that he
Yeah.
that he shortened it to that age.
Yeah, because when me and Pete were talking about it, I was like, but that doesn't make sense, because I think Abraham was like, he was pretty old, and that was like way after God said that.
Yeah.
So I've always just said, nah, it's definitely 120 years until God just wipes out the earth with the flood.
So is
Because
that-
that's why I've always thought about it. Like, they had like 120 years to get right with God, bro.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean that's plenty of time. He gave them a lot of time.
Yeah, that's
'Cause I-
like kind of like what I'm thinking.
Cause like it's not mentioned in the Bible, but I can't imagine that Noah. Like if you watch any movie about it or any like commentary on it, like it usually has Noah talking with other people and telling them about the destruction and stuff like. And I think that's realistic. Like it doesn't mention it in the Bible that he did, but I find it hard to believe that 120 years of building it, that nobody came across it and asked him, and he told them. Like I guarantee he was telling people, and that just nobody listened.
They definitely knew what he was doing, bro, because like for you to just walk around and see this guy building this thing for so many years, like
Yeah.
you're definitely like your parents are gonna tell you, your grandparents are gonna tell you, oh yeah, that guy's been building that ark for like the past 60 years.
Mhm. You know what? I just thought of something crazy. Obviously, there's no evidence for this, but let's say that Abraham had all of these stories passed down to him. Like he had the creation story and the flood and Babel and everything passed down to him, right? So that he could pass it down to future generations. But like I said, no evidence for this. Let's just say this is the case. Do we think then that would be why he bartered for Sodom and Gomorrah? Because he's like, oh, I've seen, like, he's actually gonna do this. Like, I gotta, like, if there's other people there, like, maybe I can barter with God so he doesn't do something like that again. I mean, like I said, there's no evidence for that, but it's an interesting thought, I feel like.
Wait, can you say it again?
So,
I think I missed a part.
so-
So you think Abraham
like,
witnessed
Abraham-
something?
Well, no, so Abraham had these stories passed down to him by his ancestors, right?
Oh.
Like the flood narrative
Oh,
and
okay,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So he would have known the flood narrative, and he'd be like, oh, like this God that I worship was... Well, actually, I don't know if there would be evidence for that, come to think of it. I think there would maybe actually be evidence in the opposite direction, now that I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
Because it's not clear in the beginning of the narrative that Abraham actually knows Yahweh until God approaches him. So maybe that wouldn't be the case, actually. Anyways, we can move on. That was an odd thought. So Zeb says, like, there's countless rogue planets, so it's not entirely possible for the Earth to rotate around the star. There's also countless planets that could theoretically host life. I'm not saying I'm pro or anti-alien because I'm not really either. Scientifically, we're more apt to be alone than we are to rotate a planet. Plus, it could be God created side projects before Earth and abandoned them for whatever reason. Okay. To comment on that last part, that sounds like the gap theory of creation, which I don't know if you know the gap theory of creation, but the gap theory of creation says that there's a story that happened between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, because Genesis 1:2 mentions that the earth was without form and void, implying that there was something that God did before us. So that would fall into that category if you go that argument side. But I mean, I agree with you. I'm not pro or anti-alien because I don't really care either way, if I'm being honest. But that is interesting. Gosh, I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
I know one thing. I really hope there aren't aliens.
Yeah. No,
Because, like, in my mind,
I
like the way
agree.
I've seen it and the way I have thought about it so far up to this point, I don't know how I could get around that.
Yeah, no, that would be really
I
hard.
think
to
it would pretty
work
much.
with.
No, it's funny because Maya would always be like, "What are you gonna say, man? What are you gonna say when the day when aliens come to Earth? Like, what are you gonna do then?" I'm like, probably nothing. Maybe kill myself. I don't know. No, but like in general, I would just look back and be like, I don't think it will happen, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just. If I wasn't a Christian,
I mean-
I'd say sure, yeah, it probably will. But the fact that I'm a Christian just makes me think, nah. Like, God created all of
Nah.
this for us. Not
I
in a
mean, my
selfish
thing
way,
is-
but just, you know.
There probably is a way somehow, in some way, shape, or form that I can't understand somehow, of how we could justify it. Like how the same thing with the sun and the earth, but my brain can't understand.
So Zev says another thing. I have a question though. If Noah was blameless, not to say he's Jesus because Jesus is not human. I mean, he is, but he isn't. You know what I mean? We can't compare them. But does being blameless mean he led a Jesus-like life? I mean, I have a response, but I'll let you guys talk about it because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
That's a good question, actually. The thing about, so like, which verses does it actually talk about him being like righteous or pure? Because I have a few opinions on that.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
I really don't know. Like, I don't think he lived a perfect life. Of course he
well,
didn't.
let me
But
find different translations. So the NRSV
Yeah.
says, "These are the descendants of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation." That's NRSV. Where's NIV? We'll do NIV next because it's the next one on the list. If I can find it. Where is it?
Wait, what's the verse?
6:9. NIV says, "This is the
Okay.
account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God." And then let me pull up the King James. King James Version. "These are the generation. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations," is what the King James says. So King James literally says
Yeah, it's-
perfect. But
Yeah.
to add on to that, all of those translations say in his generation he was perfect and blameless. So it does add that thing on the end.
I feel like ultimately, what I've always kind of thought it was saying is when it comes down to it, because of the Nephilim at the time, and because sin was so rampant because of that, and, you know, polygamous tribal leaders, or whatever way you want to look at it, like, Noah was just not involved in a lot of the, like, his blood literally was perfect. Like, when I hear, like, oh, no, it was perfect, well, like, his bloodline literally was perfect. Like, he was not, his blood was not tainted with Nephilim or anything that was impure, that was coming from, like, a angelic or demonic spirit.
So
He was literally just a human.
So I would say as well, right? So, gosh, this has been so fascinating to me ever since I heard this said in a previous class, and now every time I read one of these stories, I look for it, right? The idea to the Israelites is like from the beginning, from the Garden of Eden, they're waiting for this Messiah to come save them from their state, right?
Yeah.
And the Old Testament, if you're reading it as a Hebrew or as an Israelite, right? You read it, and every single one of these stories, you think to yourself, this is the guy. This is the guy. And then at some point in the story, they mess up, and you're like, it's not the guy, right? So Noah's a great example of that, right? You're like, oh, he's perfect, he's blameless, God chose him. And then you get to the end of the story, and it's like, oh, well, he just made this terrible decision and cursed his son and like, it's not meant to be an appealing story of Noah, right?
Got drunk, naked, and then cursed his son when he woke him up.
And like everyone like Moses, right? It's like, oh, Moses, like 3 books of this guy and he's done nothing wrong, and then out of nowhere it's like, oh, he disobeyed God. It's like, oh, well, that sucks. And then like you get some of the judges, right? And it's like Gideon, and like some of them, it's like, oh man, these guys are warriors and they're on fire for God. They haven't done anything wrong, and then Gideon makes idols, and it's like, oh, well, it wasn't him. So it's not like they lived
like
perfect
David.
lives. Yeah, exactly. Like all of them.
Like everybody thinks David's like so amazing and he's awesome, and he's like, he's a man after God's own heart, and then he sleeps with his best friend wife and then kills him.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like it's definitely clear that Noah wasn't a completely blameless person. Like even like let's say even up until that point in his life, he lived a sinless life, like by chance, right? He still did sin. He still did mess up, right? So he didn't do the thing that Jesus did. Either way, like even if you do take that to be perfect, he still didn't.
Yeah, in the end, he didn't actually do what they were waiting for, which was Jesus.
Mm-hmm. So
that's true.
So Zev brings up Job then, who's also described as being righteous and blameless. The interesting thing about Job is that Job is very exaggerated for the sake of it being wisdom literature, right? So if you read it's something that we lose in the English translations because we don't understand it, but if you read it how the Hebrews would have read it, they would have read it like a trial where Job, who has done nothing wrong, is coming before the court, and he has God as his accused, right? So he's like putting God on trial, right? And it's a case where, right? And as you're reading it like it's a court case, in the sense you're told at the beginning, Job has done nothing wrong. He doesn't deserve what he has been given. And it's written that way for the wisdom literature to show that there's no wiggle room, right? Like if you're gonna read it like how they want you to read it, which is wisdom literature, you have to believe that Job was blameless. Otherwise, the entire case falls through. If you believe that Job wasn't blameless, then the case falls through. He was deserving of what God gave him. But if you read it in the Hebrew, it's understood from the beginning, Job was blameless, and God's on trial here, and it's a legitimate case. And it's like, which way is it going to go? And then the 3 friends speak their say, and they make their charges against Job, saying, like, he has to be the one that messed up. And then, what's-his-name comes up and says it. And then God just comes out right and says, like, you have no reason to put me on trial, right? Like, who are you to fathom what I've created and what I've done? You have no reason to put me on trial. You can't do that. And that's essentially just how the trial ends, right? So Job would be an exception in that he was perfectly blameless, specifically for the exaggeration of that book. So it wouldn't be that there's a recurring theme there. It's just that Job is an outlier written that way for the material. Dude, the wisdom literature is crazy. There's so much cool stuff in there. And that's why we're studying Ecclesiastes, man. Such a cool book.
Oh,
Bless you.
oh, thank you.
Anyways, that was another side tangent.
What else?
Alright, so Evan, what's your next burning question or topic?
So when it comes to, I think I'm gonna go to that. Hold on, please.
okay, yeah, I do kind of want to talk about that. So like when we want to talk about like Noah cursing Ham and his descendants, like, what actually do you think Ham did? Like, do you think Ham actually did something?
That's a good question.
Because I've always heard that there's like connotation to the story to where it's not just, oh well, Ham just finds him naked and it's like, oh, let me go get my brothers, and he goes and gets them, and then they clothe them, and then Noah wakes up and is like, really, man? Like I've actually heard it like there's a connotation to the story. I don't know if it's true, I've never really looked into it, that it may have been like a sexual thing that Ham was trying to do.
Interesting.
Like,
okay.
possibly not like he was like trying to do
Okay.
something sexual too, but it was more of a like he was looking at his dad somehow in a sexually immoral way by the fact he saw him naked, so that's why he got his brothers. That's what I've heard, and I don't know if
Okay.
that's necessarily true though.
No, I actually haven't heard that before, but that is interesting. That would put a different spin on this story, right? Like if there was something wrong
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
definitely,
done, then that does change the story.
Yeah, no, it does, because that's what I was thinking earlier. Like, well, Ham may have actually very wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It also just, I mean, then again, I feel like if you look at it from like not too deep of an angle, you could just say, well, it kind of seems like Ham's just making fun of him. Like he's just laughing at him. In his just moment of despair, of being drunk and shamed and naked,
Yeah.
he just was like, huh, that's kind of funny. Let me go get my brothers. They'll think it's funny too.
So Zeb says something similar. He says, I've heard that seeing family naked was considered incest, and that he ran out to gossip about Noah not to seek help.
Yeah, no, that's probably the best way to look at it. I think that's the way I would see it. Is that it definitely was him just being like, and then him going and getting his brothers to talk about it, but not actually doing anything. Like, his brothers probably got there and were like, dude, what are you doing? Get some clothes on this guy. Like,
Well, I guess either way though, like Noah's not perfectly in the clear, right? Like he got drunk and just got naked in his tent and stuff like that.
oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like,
No, nothing that Noah did in this scenario is really good.
Yeah.
Like, I would not say that he put himself in a good position at all.
Yeah. Okay.
But also
that is
argue he
interesting.
probably doesn't know what he's doing either, too, because he probably didn't really even understand that humans could get intoxicated
Yeah.
until he was.
Interesting. Yeah, so like he's already seen Noah naked, so what's the difference if he stays in there and covers him up? Why go to the siblings? That's a point.
Yeah, no, that's a
point.
good point.
Bert, what about you? What do you think?
Bert? I don't think so.
Oh, okay. That is interesting though. Hang on, let me do this real quick. This is the only time I'll do this on stream. Well, actually I don't want to promise that, but you know, for right now, I'll do this. Or wait, no, I typed that in wrong. No. Can I edit that? Dang, I typed that in wrong. I meant to say take back the rainbow. I accidentally typed in bring back the rainbow. I meant to say take back the rainbow is what I meant to type. Gosh darn it.
Sure, Logan. Sure.
It's hashtag bring back the rainbow because we're bringing back the original meaning of the rainbow, right, guys? Right.
Yes, sir.
Back me up on that.
My man's just trying to find a biblical reason to kiss the homies goodnight
Yeah, that's a good
to
point.
justify his actions.
Dude, you got me good. You got me real good.
This was a 3-question assignment that I've been working on for 2.5 hours.
Dude, that sucks.
Yeah, no, exactly, right? Like, yeah, no, that is a good point. I do like your argument. That is actually not a way I've thought of it before.
Man, we really got into it tonight.
Did. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I was thinking about talking about. But
I'm pretty
honestly-
much like out of everything that I thought I wanted to talk about.
Okay, so I guess then we can just leave it up for everybody else, right? So what does everybody else want to talk?
I'm cool with just everybody wants to talk about whatever.
Yeah. So
Pretty soon here, I need to go take this protein powder.
Yeah. So chat and Discord. Do you guys have any comments, questions, concerns? The Conway thing that I still don't remember.
Dude, today was a horrible day to miss, I think. I mean, I did the problem,
Dude, I'm sorry to hear
and I'm kind of thinking I got the right answer, but it was like half a page of writing, and I think it would have been a lot simpler if I'd done it another way.
that. I gotcha. I mean, if there's any way I could help you out with it, I definitely would, but that's not my area of expertise.
And it's so stupid, dude. This much work for a box. It's literally a box.
Mm-hmm.
The box is 80 degrees Celsius, 500 kilopascals pressure in the box, and it is 0.06 meters cubed volume, and it is filled with R134A refrigerant. That's what it is. And then it says it loses heat and goes down to 200 kilopascals from 500. And then it asks what all the final temperature and the heat loss in joules is from the system. But the problem is, at 500 kilopascals and 80 degrees Celsius, R134A is all a gas. And then once it goes down to 200 kilopascals and that much volume, it is a mixture of a gas and a liquid, and it doesn't tell you what the ratio of gas to liquid is in volume or mass. And I think I did it right, but I don't know.
So Zev asks, so back to the fish question, they're explicitly not included in the arc. I mean, I guess it depends on how you read it, but 620 lists land and sky creatures, but not sea creatures. Well, I mean, realistically, you know, they wouldn't need to be, right? You know, depending on how you look at it. But, like,
Yeah.
realistically, they wouldn't need to be.
And
Yeah.
there are a fair amount of species, I'm pretty sure, that can adjust slowly from saltwater to freshwater. Like, I remember do you remember when we went to the fish store with Caleb?
Yeah.
And they were slowly transitioning the one type of fish from either salt to fresh or fresh to salt so you could put them in the same type of tank with other fish.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if there'd still be like pockets of saltier and pockets of fresher water, or if it took that long to mix everything that, you know, they were just fine for that amount of time, and the sea keeps getting saltier as time goes on because more salt goes into it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're thinking about thousands of years of the sea getting saltier,
Mm-hmm.
it used to not be that salty, so the difference between salt and fresh water was probably
Yeah.
less.
No, that is interesting, right? Because it could have not been like a freshwater, saltwater situation during that time.
Yeah. Like mineral water and purified drinking water.
My question is, why can you eat fish raw? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can eat fish raw and nothing will happen. But like, if you were to
Yeah.
ever take like a raw piece of steak and eat it straight up, like, that
Is that a
hurt.
gallbladder thing? Is that a gallbladder thing?
Is it?
I think the gallbladder's the thing that does that.
Interesting.
I ate like a bunch of raw fish the other day, and I was super like, I started getting tweaked about it. I was like, dude, like, am I gonna, like, I know this is like normal, people do this all the time, but like, am I gonna die?
Huh.
Yeah, I ate like
that's
a bunch.
interesting.
I was like, oh no, this is weird.
Might just be easier for us to break down than like red meat or whatever.
Yeah,
Maybe.
true. Well, I guess because it,
Maybe because like red meat's more similar to us. Anything that would cause problems in a red meat animal would also cause problems in us, like bacteria
Yeah.
and anything like
Well-
that. Where fish, it's like different type of stuff.
It's
I don't know.
probably also like a blood thing too, because like,
Yeah.
does that have anything to, I mean, would it have anything to do with it? Because like fish don't really have like a lot of blood, I guess.
Maybe. Oh,
At least when I see like raw fish meat, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look bloody. That just looks delicious.
So speaking of, real quick, before I forget,
Yeah.
I just wanna.
Evan's actually a cat.
I'm gonna. hang on. I gotta find it. I actually don't remember where it's at. I mean, it's just a real
Maybe.
quick comment before we have another question from chat. But so you know how we always talk about Evan, about how God just restricted some things from them because it was unhealthy for them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So he says that they can't eat any meat with blood in it, which
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have
that's what I was
100% have been a
thinking
health thing.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking of. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
maybe it's like, you know, the whole idea with, you know, eating meat with large amounts of blood, you know, that's like
Mhm.
not good for you.
Yeah.
So that's why I also thought like the fish thing, like, oh, maybe it's okay because it's just not as much blood.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I was getting to because,
Well, that and I think the reason pigs were restricted for so long too is because, like, at least what I've heard is pigs are the most similar to humans as far as
oh yeah, I've heard
organs.
that.
Like,
Yeah,
they can use genetically engineered like pig stuff for what is it called, insulin,
Mm.
and they're trying to grow organs and stuff, but
yeah.
if you think about it, like, diseases kind of stay within their things that they work in. So like birds get bird
Mhm.
diseases, and like fish get fish diseases, mammals get mammal diseases. But like, if we're that close to pigs, any disease a pig would
Yeah.
have would be very easy for us
Yeah.
to get as well.
So Zev says technically you should only eat raw. Wait. Technically, you should only eat raw fish that's been processed in a certain way, and if it isn't kept under proper refrigeration, or if you cook it to any extent, you then can't eat it anymore until it's fully cooked. But like if you just get salmon from a river, it's not suggested you eat it raw due to possible contaminants.
Okay,
And then also there was a question as well.
makes sense.
I have another comment about the 120-year thing. So in verse
Oh, okay.
or 7:4, he says 7 days from now. So is there like a 120-year difference between 6 and 7 for that argument to hold? So let me read those verses again. Oh, never mind. I don't have to read them because I see exactly what you're saying. Yeah. No, so I mean, it's clear, like, right at the beginning of chapter 7, right? Like, he's already telling Noah, go into your ark and the household, because in 7 days I will send the rain, right? So, yeah, I'd say there's a 120-year gap between... I mean, Noah certainly didn't build the ark in 7 days or even a couple years, right? So it would make sense, like, 120 years, and then there's a pause, like, from the commands to whenever it's built, and Noah's just... or God's just telling them to go into the ark. Is what I would say, at least. I don't know if you guys have anything else.
No, that's what I would say. At first I was confused by the question, but I understand it now.
Dude, I really messed up mod view here, and I don't know how to fix it, but it's okay because I don't think we have too much anymore, so I'll just go with it in the messed up view for however much longer we're alive.
Hey, speaking of floods, I'm pretty sure Kentucky is flooding at the moment.
Don't tell me that, please. For the love of everything.
What
Yeah.
is it really?
Dude, I haven't been able to see for the past half hour straight.
It's not raining where I'm at yet. That's
I
good.
literally, I have a very tiny window that I'm like trying to see through to drive.
Oh my god.
Dude, I don't know how to fix this mod view. I'm going nuts. Like, what did I do? Anyways, well, is there any other questions or comments or concerns or just anything?
Negative.
Anything from anyone?
Negative.
I cannot think of any more.
I was gonna say, you know. Because if that's it, we could just.
Good
just
night.
Call that. Do you mean on Twitch my mod? No, I messed up my specific mod view pretty bad. And I don't know how to fix it. So I gotta fix my end.
Schmebben your Klinga.
Also, no, I can try and figure that out at some point. But okay, well, I guess is that where we're, I mean, I was kind of hoping to make these streams because now that I'm uploading these streams to YouTube, I was kind of because we used to have them like 4 hours long, so I was kind of hoping to keep them like 2 hours or less, anyways, for these streams. So I guess do we just want to call it there then?
I'm down for whatever. I think it was good. I think we went over.
Yeah, like I can't think of anything else to talk about, and I mean, I think we did a good job, I'd say. So
Yeah, I mean, that was like an hour and 45-minute conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
So-
I'd say pretty good.
I mean, I could maybe if I'm not working tomorrow, I could play tomorrow night.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
I might be working tomorrow night for the revival stuff, but I'm not sure. We'll see.
Dude, Logan, how's the cut?
Gosh, I hate it, but it seems like it's off to a good start at least.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I hate it. Well, actually, you know what? Unironically, today will actually be pretty good for it, because it's Ash Wednesday, so we're fasting today. So,
Oh, for real?
yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, so we did Ash Wednesday, so we did the Ash Wednesday service, and that's why I have this mark on my forehead that I didn't wash off yet. But so you follow Ash Wednesday with fasting, essentially,
Yeah.
whether it's just 24 hours or for the full 40 days. So the campus is essentially just doing 24-hour fast. So from
Yeah.
whenever we left chapel today till we get to chapel tomorrow, and we end the 24-hour fast with communion. So I didn't even think about it like that it'll actually be good for me
Dang,
today.
yeah, that'll be good for your cut, bro.
Yeah, I wasn't even
Actually,
thinking about
that's
it.
probably like a huge jump forward for it. Actually,
Yeah. Like I
That's
didn't
the
even
whole day.
I wasn't even really
How much
thinking
that
about it in terms of the cut. I was just doing it because
Yeah, you're
That's-
just doing it.
I was
Just
just doing
because
it.
it's the thing.
yeah, because that's just what we were doing on campus.
Yeah.
Which,
No, dude, that's just extra points.
Yeah. Well, because this is my first time actually because we didn't celebrate Ash Wednesday or Lent back home, but they celebrate it here.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
like today was my first actual Ash Wednesday, and like fast for Lent. I mean, I'm only doing the 24-hour one, but what are your thoughts on only water? Okay, so we'll take this as the last question before we end it. What are the thoughts on water fasting? Because I know a lot of people that do the 40-day water fasts, and honestly, I have mad respect. If you're able to do a
Wait,
21
are
or
we talking about
40
40
day,
days or just in general?
in general, but typically they're done for either 21 or 40 days.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I give mad props to the people who are able to do it.
Yeah.
If I was to do one, I'd probably do not just a water fast. I'd probably do like a Daniel fast for 40 days. I feel like I could do that.
Dude, 40 days is a long time.
Yeah, 40 days no food. Those people
That's
are
That's
long,
like
bro.
a month and 10 days.
Dude, that is like a month and 10 days.
yeah, but there like a lot of people do that. Like a lot of
Yeah,
people
no,
actually do that, and I
think,
give mad respect.
Pete's grandma did that one time.
Yeah, it's hard for me to commit to doing like a full fast because of how like strict I've had my diet for so long and how much I care about my strength growth and everything like that. So it's hard for me to commit to a fast because I'd lose all that I'd
Yeah,
worked for a
true.
couple years. But
True.
the people who do actually do it, I have mad respect for them. But yeah,
Doing like a day or a couple day fast can actually almost help you sometimes in those areas, depending on what you're going for.
yeah. I mean, if
They
you
say
actually...
like it can like reset like your body's like what kind of foods you like actually crave. Like if you have like a sugar problem and you like fast for like a day or two,
Well,
and then you
it's-
go back to eating like really good and healthy and clean, like you literally will like lose the craving for sugar.
Well, so we talked about it in chapel today, right? So the sermon was essentially talking about why fasts are important, right? And like not only just the biblical reasoning, but just in general why it's good for you.
Oh yeah, they can be. Yeah.
Like physically, it can be better for
I
you.
mean, people who aren't Christian also fast.
Yeah, exactly. Like it can be better for you physically for a lot of reasons, like we were just talking about a lot of them. Spiritually it's really good for you because it teaches you to, well, first of all, you use that time for God, right? Like you don't just fast for no reason.
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
use that time for God. And also it's a little...
It's going on.
But on top
Luke,
of that, hang on,
So-
I gotta fix that. Oh my
You're
gosh,
the
yeah,
I'll
no,
do
that
it, I
doesn't
fixed
surprise
it.
me. Okay,
Oh,
I'm
you did,
gonna have to
okay.
mute you for like 2 seconds while
No,
we finish
no, I
the
fixed it.
conversation.
He
And stream.
But anyways, but so spiritually, right? I'm sorry, Luke. I'll unmute you in a second. But so it's good spiritually because you dedicate that time to God. But also, this was
Yeah.
actually a new reason I never thought about it until today. Spiritually, it also teaches you to hunger after God, right? Like so whenever you're hungering after food, the way you're supposed to think about it is, why do I not hunger after God the same way that I hunger after food right now? Like, why do I not feel a need for God in the same way that my body feels a need for God or for food?
yeah.
Which I never thought about that way until now, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
But also,
I've always heard it like the way of like your flesh is kind of dying and your spirit is kind of like becoming more alive because you don't have food to focus, so instead you focus on God. And
Yeah. Okay. Well, good night, Cole. Good night. But the last
Good
thing,
night,
right?
Cole.
It also So this was another thing that was brought up today. Is essentially, the reason Daniel fasted with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was because they wanted to reorient their desires, right? And if you're able to be disciplined enough to hold to a food fast, then you can be disciplined enough to control any of your desires. Essentially is the argument. If you can control what you eat and tell yourself not to eat whenever your body is like fighting against you not to, then you will find it infinitely easier to fight off any other desires your body might be going after. Like whether it's a temptation for something or like a lust or like
Luke,
any
you
kind of
need a bunker
sin
right
you're like oriented towards, right? Like if you can control this, then you will be able to so much easier control your temptations toward other things.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
What is that?
Yeah, no, fasting is pretty amazing actually.
It's cool stuff. All right, but sweet. I don't want to make promises about tomorrow because I might be working the revival tomorrow. But if not, then I'll probably I'll at least try to fit in one this weekend if I'm not able to stream tomorrow. Which honestly shouldn't be too bad because all my friends from here are actually leaving this weekend to work on some other stuff. So it'll pretty much just be me this weekend. So I'll probably end up streaming at least once this weekend. So if I don't tomorrow. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys then. Zeph says, have the best night ever, Logan, and Evan, and the mean man who doesn't think I'm funny. And I will also extend that to Gavin, Dietrich, and Luke, who have been here just listening. Well, I mean, they've made some comments,
Bunker right now?
but yeah, I'll see you guys. Have a good one.